Right, this is an edition of Stampscapes Impromptu Live. We're going to finish off one of the kind of more slimline formatted pieces here, stamp sketches. And I thought I would do it in a purple scheme because I wanted to bring in some purple tones into these trees here. The technique I'm going to be using on this piece of 8.5 by, I think it's 3.5 inches wide, is a piece of the semi-gloss cardstock, white cardstock. And I used the dye-based inks on this one. It would have been better if I used the StazOn because I'm going to be doing some watercolor techniques on here, but I thought we'd give it a shot, you know. Some of this ink might go back into solution, so we'll see if this has been sitting around long enough, you know, after a few days to be set long enough, but I just don't know. Hello, Diana, how are you? All right, so that being said, I have some paint pens here, acrylic paint pens in the color scheme that I'm thinking about. Maybe I'll bring out a pink in here too. And here's the purple toned watercolor pencils. So I don't know, we'll see how this goes. One of the things about using, I've done this combination of media before, but not in this type of, not a specific color scheme, so we'll see how this goes here. But that being said, usually, if I don't like what I see using a lot of different media surface combinations through the first few steps, I can usually, you know, kind of remedy a lot of the problem areas with some white pigment ink. So that's my kind of, I don't know, that's my save all type of medium here. So let's see if that might be the case, if need be, with dye-based inks and your water-based media here. Hello, Linda and Ginger. Good evening. Thanks for thanks for joining in here. However long you might be on and setting your notifications. I was thinking, I think I know what I'm doing on this one, so I might as well just pop it and go live. I'm starting to think with some of the other ones that I'm just doing like really, I don't know, experimental stuff. I do a lot of those live, but some of it I've come to realize maybe I should just, you know, record it. So I can just, I don't know, fumble around in, I don't know, somewhat privately with the I don't know, kind of exploratory techniques here. Let's create a waterfall on this one. I've been really enjoying doing these waterfalls in between the two Mystic Hills here, so I'll just freehand kind of a vertical drop here. So we'll go, I really like doing these waterfalls kind of narrow too, like this. And it'll go up here. You don't have to have too much of a kind of a definitive starting point, because that can be up in that misty area as well. So that makes it easy for us, you know. You don't have to have these kind of definitive endpoints, or slightly more definitive endpoints, because they're just going into the mist. Ah. Thanks, Diana. All right, let's see here. Some of these might work well just as, you know, kind of colored pencil touches, but I do like that kind of watercolory look. But sometimes when I'm doing these watercolor pencils and I'm kind of achieving different values with it. Sometimes when I go in initially with the water, I lose all that. So sometimes it's like, oh, I wonder if it looked better before. But then what I've been doing is I've been going back in with the pencils, or I'll just take a colored pencil and go into it and redefine those kind of value changes, more subtle value changes within these given spaces. But like I said, I don't know. I do kind of like that watercolory look. It Watercolors are one of those things that I always wished. I don't know. I was more practiced at, or I don't know, just better at in general. I really love kind of that washy look. It doesn't have to be watercolors, but that just a looser type of application with media. I've always loved those looks, those real gestural types of applications, but I'm more of a methodical kind of, oh, whatever, illustrator, a lot of tight detail and things like that. But I do really love the look of your more kind of spontaneous, very gestural, um, yeah, almost calligraphic styles of marks. So if I can bring some of that kind of spirit into what I'm doing, uh, I see that as a positive. And this is, I don't know, this is one of those instances when I think we can kind of, get some semblance of that at least with these water applications. It's still kind of methodical though, the way I do it. I try not to make it look like that. All right, so just kind of developing the values here. This is a big space in here to have nothing down in that area, but we'll have this area in a lot of cloudy areas. So the title of this one's like Purple Haze. So I'll try to have this purplish haze in these areas here. Yeah, we'll see how it comes out. All right, let's see. Now I have all these other colors to use in here, so I guess I'm just going to layer that over the black and see how that comes out here. Yeah, I think they look better too, huh, Linda? The narrow ones. It seems to be more, I don't know, appropriate for these in between these mountains too. I was making them too wide. I don't know. Maybe that looks good for like if you have one that's represents something closer, but those more distant ones, I like this really kind of narrow strip. All right, so let's see. Like I was saying, I do have these other pencils, and those ones can also. I'm going to make this terrain just generally purplish in tone anyway. So I'm just defining these values in here. So the thing that I'm not really quite certain about is how far should I go with the black tone. I mean, I can do really the whole thing that way if I was going to do it monochrome, but since I'm moving through these tones as well, the question I'm asking to myself is how much black should I apply in there and how much I should apply of these other tones. I'm not really sure about that in this colored piece. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah, so Linda, we don't have to, call emergency services to go do a wellness check on you. Luckily, someone knew that you were gone, so. Okay. I'll have to do something down here. I'm not quite sure what it is. Maybe some foreground or something like that. I'm not quite sure. We'll figure it out. Okay, so that was the black there. I need to sharpen this black one. All right, so look at this. Probably never used these ones. I haven't. So brand new. I barely used any of the colored watercolored pencils in my set so far. So might as well dip into some of these, huh? Okay, so this is the purple. I'm just trying to add a touch of hue into the mix here with this. And what's going through my head right now, too, is I'm not quite certain if I should leave kind of like some directional texture marks or if I should cross hatch it or if it's going to matter at all. By the time I add in the water into it. So I don't know. I might want to leave. I think the technique over time is going to be where I apply this pencil work, and when I go in with the water washes into it, I retain some of the pencil mark hatching kind of motion, you know, those textures, and only kind of wash out, or I don't know, whatever the term would be, to some of the area so that you get a little bit of textural kind of benefit from these pencils as well. So when you're doing these types of things, if you're going with these hatching marks like that, sometimes it's good to keep these kind of directional types of marks pretty consistent through the whole thing. Okay. So I mean I'm not really doing that here. I'm doing it a little bit, but not a whole lot because I don't know how much of this is I'm going to retain. I'll probably go over it with the whole. I'll probably give the whole thing a good washing, you know, or I don't know, whatever water application. So I'm starting to do some kind of a little bit of a stronger vignette around the edges here too. Maybe I'll start bringing some of this down where the scene might benefit too. I'm not sure. Okay. The objects on from here up are being top toned and bottom lit, and the area from down here, this area down here in these forms within the Mystic Bridge are being just traditionally top lit. Okay, so bottom lit up here and top lit down here, meaning I'm just adding the shadows into the the traditional areas on these objects. These areas up here are going to be more kind of blanketed in a little bit of a kind of that foggy mist from the bottom up. That's why. Okay. This area in here, this is going to be an area that really needs to get filled in too. So, let's do it with the purple here. I should probably use some black in there too, but okay, this is where the water will really help, I think, right in here, because adding this sheer amount of pencil work in here, it's going to look really choppy because there's such a big, huge open space like that. And that goes the same for anything that you're doing, any kind of media where there's a big, huge area to fill in. I mean, it depends on what look you're going after, but that's why I like filling in my areas with things like the tiny rock stamp in these little areas like that, so that if it gets a little bit clunky as far as my coloring techniques go with any kind of media, it's not it's not so obvious if it's kind of really rough looking when you have additional texturing in the use of in the form of forms and textures like rocks, things like that, water textures, things like that. It hides all that, kind of you know sketchy sketchy applications of things, you know. As does the white pigment ink. White pigment ink is another texture too, so it's the same type of thing. You fill it in with textures, crisp and soft. Crisp is additional, imagery, and the softness could be, your white pigment ink with a cotton ball or whatever you use to apply it. In other words, you just bury things that you don't like. You hide it. All right, so here is my shadow work like this. I don't want to go too dark though, because that's the area where I'm going to bring in some kind of cloudy textures using the white pigment ink, i.e. the purple haze. Okay, this is just all the dark, kind of darker violet here. In my watercolor pencils, I was surprised that there weren't like pink tones for some reason. There were warmer pinks, and there wasn't like I thought, okay, maybe they just have like some base reds where if you add water to it, it lightens it and becomes like a pink. But they didn't really have like a real straightforward red, like a neutral red. So I was surprised at that because I think I could have used something like that, something like this in the mix here. So I don't know. I think there was another. I think we were mentioning you too in another live too, Linda. It was definitely in that last one. But I think there was another one too where, it's like, where's Linda? Okay, so anyways, what is this? Imperial Purple. Kind of moving a little bit more towards that magenta touch look here. All right, I think that's getting there. I'm not sure of how much to apply with this because all that color gets dragged over anyway, with the water applications on here. And I'm not quite sure how much of this to apply a lot of times. Sometimes I apply too much. And it's like, oh, everything's getting too dark with this. But I don't know. We'll apply what I think I need, and then if I don't know, kind of overdo it, like I said, I'll just I don't know, use more white pigment ink or something like that to compensate. Okay, so this is magenta here. Anyone have stamps by Magenta? I used to see them at every single, I think every single convention that I ever did, they did. Meaning they were doing a lot more than me. Traveling all over the place. I'd see them all over the place. Everyone kind of started getting routines down. Anywhere you travel to. I remember Magenta. I think it was the Cincinnati show. You'd always see them at like I don't know if it was Panera or something like that. I always saw them getting their breakfast or coffee at some restaurant somewhere. At one of the shows in like every year. All right. I think that should do it right there. So that's going to give me my base. And okay, this is what I'm doing right here. So this is going a little bit darker down in the water. Then we have our kind of lighter areas up here. But see this right here where this bridge goes like this? This is one of those things that you can look for. This bridge is like a point of emphasis, right? Visual, kind of focal point in the scene. So if you want to emphasize something like that, what you do is you make the area in back of it a little bit darker. Now, it doesn't need to be like real dark, but it's white right now, right? So what you do is you come into it like this, and maybe not with this magenta. I guess that kind of looks pink right there. But you go like that, and let's bring in a purple now, back there. Like this. Okay, so you make that area in back of it a little bit darker. I guess it has to be darker underneath here too, because that's looking through into that area. But you just make the area... Now, if this bridge was really dark, then you can leave it like that, but it's fairly light right now, so I've added this tone behind there just to bring that out forward a little bit, so you're kind of utilizing value to kind of make an object stand out a bit. With value. Light and dark. Like that. So let's add a little bit of black into there. About like so. All right, let's bring in the water, and I'm hoping that all of my dye-based inks don't start just blurring out on me. I don't think they will. I think they've set long enough, but I can see some of them going back into solution. Maybe some of the little details in there going back into solution, potentially. I'm not sure. Okay. Okay, so someone asked me, they were asking me something else, but they were just kind of curious why I go with this like small paintbrush as opposed to like a larger paintbrush. And I just said, well, I mean, I do have larger brushes, right here like these. But I might be doing a scene that's this large, but I'm always just working really small spaces with this. I'm never working like much bigger than I don't know, maybe a ½ inch square space, maybe an inch at most, at any given time. So I'm not doing these washy things over this entire area. I'm working a small area like this, and I'm kind of working down here and here. So kind of a smaller brush kind of fits the bill for that. In terms of the look that I'm going for too, or the maybe it's not the look that I'm going for, but the application kind of rate that I'm going after. I don't want to. I'm not really interested in kind of doing anything too big suddenly, just because I'm not going to have control over it with my abilities with watercolor, with really just liquid media, I guess, more specifically or more generally. So I just want to do things kind of slower, just as a process. I just have a little more control over it. That's a little bit too much water there. I'm removing too much of the paint there. That's what I'm talking about, kind of just taking it a little bit slower. Okay, so I'm working from the bottom up. Before I was going from the top down, dragging that ink down, but since the cloudy area down here is going to be the lightest area, I'm just kind of working it from here when I get down in that area and up. Because that's the transition of lighting right in here. So the wettest point, I'm applying that water in that space and working away from it so that I don't drag this down and have like a really definitive, like a harsh line. I'm doing it a little bit from top down up here because I don't want to work up there and go above my mountains into that open space. That being said, I'm not saying this is good either. This isn't necessarily. It's just kind of it's a safe methodology for me. Okay, last time one of my last scenes with a really narrow kind of waterfall. Just like right now, I'm almost toning it out. I need to be careful around that area so I don't just eradicate that light area in there. As a matter of fact, I might go up it or put some white back into it with a paint pen. Okay, let's see here. Going into it with a pretty good amount of water right here, just to taper that off right there a little bit more. And I'm getting some decent textures in there, but I need to kind of go back in there again afterwards. I go back in there afterwards and redefine some kind of more subtle areas. It looks like the imagery is just fine. It's sat around long enough. It's not like totally blurring out on me anywhere in here that I can see at least. All right, let me try my hand at some water in here. Go like that. It's of course getting a little bit more intense as they do. Kind of spreading it out, but I'm also kind of removing some of that ink too here as I go. Like that's a little bit too intense right there. So going over it a little bit and kind of removing some might be good. Although I can go over it maybe with a little bit of a darker tone too. My paper is starting to buckle where it's getting really wet. But that degree of it shouldn't be bad. It'll probably flatten out on its own without me counterbending it. Okay, let's see. Okay. Trying to decipher if I should remove any more ink in here, or paint. Like this area in here got a little bit dark. Let me see if I can create a little bit of a transition right here. Yeah, I'll take some of that ink from right, or paint from right down here and kind of move it up a little bit like that. Okay, a little bit sketchy down here because I used a lot of ink in those shadow areas, or paint in those shadow areas, so it really got quite a bit darker. But I think it'll be fine. I think I can remedy a lot of kind of the more subtle types of things down here with the paint pens, and again, like the white pigment ink too. So, all right. So I think that the watercolor served its purpose reasonably well in terms of what we were going for here. Let's pull some of this down here a little bit more too. We have quite a bit of white right in here. What seems to happen with these watercolor pencils, it seems like the initial kind of touches into them, it really drags them out because they're all on the surface. And then I have a feeling that once you kind of, I don't know, whatever, put them into solution, they really soak into the paper where they're more affixed, okay? Which maybe it's good, because as I go, well, I don't know. I guess it depends how thick they are, I guess, still. Like I can drag this real definitive line out still, but the more subtle ones are definitely kind of more affixed into the beyond the surface of the card stock. All right. Okay, so I like what's going on with that water area down here. I mean, I don't think I could get that with other media. Maybe alcohol pens or something like that, if it got really juicy and you kind of really spread them around. but that's kind of the look, you know, or at least one of the things that, you know, the watercolors are really good for in terms of some kind of brush strokey, kind of real, you know, gradated transitions in there. Again, this one's a little bit too light. Let's go into it. This is probably the bad technique, going into it while it's wet, but let's do it anyway. And then just kind of spread that out a little bit more. Like that. All right. This piece is kind of wetter than you might think. I don't know. I guess it doesn't look too wobbly. Okay, let's see. Ginger, this is the semi-gloss Mohawk Everyday Digital White Coated Silk. Okay, but you know, the big thing is it's a semi-gloss cardstock. To me, all the semi-gloss cardstocks that I've used before, it's like there's hardly any difference between any of them. I've tried about 4, and I can't tell the difference between any of them. I can tell the difference between glossy cardstock brands, though. But the semi-gloss ones, Hamilco, what was it? Appleton papers out of Appleton, Wisconsin. They're no longer in business anymore, but I still have the Appleton. I have this big, huge ream of 11 by 17 of that that I haven't really been using too much, but I tried it. And with the media that I was using at the time, it's like there's no way I'd be able to tell the difference between that brand, the Everyday Digital Mohawk, you know, and the Hamilco brand, which is good. You know, it means that they're, you know, nice and consistent. I haven't tried them all, of course, or, you know, I haven't tried 10 different brands or anything like that, but they were really similar. I don't know. I guess that makes sense too. The more kind of, you know, bare something is, you know, it's when you're talking about kind of the basic formulas for pulp and cardstocks, you know, they're probably roughly the same. It's only when you start getting into the coatings that have been applied to it, how much, you know, coating has been applied to it, you know, with the you know, like glossy coatings. That's probably where it really starts to change in terms of the chemistry of the papers. But they can't be too different because, you know, the printing industry has to have some standards. But so when it comes to these papers being used in the, you know, the format in which they've been designed, which is offset printing, these they call it just digital printing. They're probably all pretty similar, but it's just that it's when we're using things like R inks on it, you know, dye-based inks, alcohol inks, stuff like that in our industry that the paper's not designed for. That's where it kind of shows kind of a different, I don't know, just a different quality from brand to brand. Okay, so I'm just going back in and adding a little bit more kind of definition over some different areas in here. I think that looks okay, you know, in terms of in terms of my applications of watercolors. I mean, it looks fine to me. You know, it's not great. If anyone, you know, if anyone was like, you know, does any kind of watercolor painting at all, or painting just in general, you know, that would look really, you know, I don't know, like remedial, as well as kind of my techniques in terms of the application of a media too. So, but I'm fine with that. With this look right here, you know, it didn't get all filled in. You know, and I've retained some lighter areas. That's the biggest thing that I was looking for in these pieces. I can use a little bit more tone, I think, on these areas down here. I think I'll fill it in with some colored pencils, though. So, purple haze, Linda. Remember that purple? We're going to add in some purple trees now, too. I still want these to be largely dark. I don't know how this will look, but we'll add in some little touches with this. And I don't want to kind of destroy the silhouette of these by making them too light. So we'll see what these look like here, just with some little, I don't know, kind of accent marks. This is a big, thick point, or 3mm pen, not 0.3, but 3mm. Okay, so this, I'm looking on my screen now. I don't know if you can even see those purple marks in those areas like that, but we'll try to bring, you know, this hue into the mix. You know, I don't know, whatever for the theme of the piece. Okay, that's all I'm going to go with that. Let's go with the lighter one right here. This one should stand out more with contrast. I'm kind of not sure if I should use this one or the smaller one. If this kind of stands out and changes it too much, then I'll just use the smaller 0.7mm. But if you have these larger pens like this, and you can get the work done faster, you might as well. As long as you're getting kind of the look that you're going after. Okay, so that is that. And it's subtle, but let's see. I have these other two right here. I don't think I need these two because these two are like the same, you know, values as these ones right here. So I've already achieved that with these larger ones. So I don't need to use these smaller ones. And so we have these right here that I'll go through. I'm looking for my white one. I don't know. Oh, here's my white pen right here. So we'll use these ones right here. All right. Let's see. This one's a pretty good one right here. It's a really pale violet, but let's go for more contrast. Let's just keep moving it here. Here comes the pink. Okay, the pink. This is a brighter pink. It's kind of similar to that right in there. I think this pink one is going to be the most important foliage pen right here as far as this color scheme goes, because it's brighter and it's lighter. It's not super bright, it's still kind of a pastel, but in comparison to, you know, the areas that I'm kind of adding it over the top of, it really stands out quite a bit more. I don't know if you can see that at all. Yeah, you can see it, I think, a little bit. See that pink tinge in the trees there? Hopefully you can see a little bit of texture. I can't zoom in too much closer. Maybe I can bring this up closer. It's blurry, but maybe you can see those little dots in there a little bit more. Okay, so let's go to white. All right, let's see if we can bring a little bit more contrast into these trees. I won't use too much of it, unless it looks great, and then I'll use a lot. Yeah, okay, that looks, yeah, it looks okay, I think. All right, now up in here in this waterfall area where it got a little bit murky with my kind of water application, I can just go and redefine that area with some white going back down there. So there it pops it right back out. So use of opacity and translucency. Sharp applications of light, soft applications of light. You can remedy a lot of things because what you're doing is you're kind of going back to the white of the paper with that, okay? So it's almost like you can't erase this stuff, but you can just reintroduce your white back into those areas, so you don't have to worry about things too much. You can't do everything with, the white, but you can do a lot with it. So like in this area right in here, it's a little bit murky with all that paint application. There's no kind of contrast in there, and we're losing some texture. So you just go back in and you add that back in with your white. So it's like you're working that lightness back into those areas, in very specific areas, with a little 0.7 millimeter pen. So light details and soft details, or sharp details and soft details. And plus it's highlighting too. So you're killing, many birds with one stone, so to speak. Okay, so on these mountains here, like this, let's bring a little bit more kind of like lighting into it here. I'm usually not so scratchy with this pen. I'm usually doing it in very kind of controlled areas, but I've been doing so much, free-flowing marks like that. I feel like being slightly more gestural with this. Maybe we can do this too in the water like this. I'm not sure if anything is even coming out of this pen. Here, let me try it with this one right here. It's kind of big, but let's give it a try. So I'm doing this from the light areas and I'm going into the dark, okay? So let's go like this. It's not great. Here, you can move it around here. There, perfect. I'm trying to make a kind of a tapered mark with this. And then if it doesn't taper, I'm just kind of taking my finger and just kind of blurring it out. So I'll show you what I'm doing right here. So I don't want this, right? So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to start in the lighter areas, and I'm trying to do like that where it tapers off like that. So it's thick to thin and light to darker, okay? Where it's moving into those darker areas. And then if I do get this kind of harsh mark like that, I'm able to kind of, wipe that off a little bit where it does taper from light to dark like that. It's doing it much easier on this. This is like a piece of matte, uncoated black. So, but on this, you can really just kind of dab it off if you want to, or if you need to. Ooh, that was terrible. Those are all pretty bad. We'll just kind of taper them off a little bit like that. All right, so your perfect, you know, tools are your hands, right? All right, so that, let's see, let's go up here. Let's do a lighter fall area with that. Okay. All right. So, let's go in here. I wanted some like lighter pinks that, like I said, that I don't know, they're not in that my watercolor pencil selection. So I'll just take care of that. These more subtle kind of transitions from here to here with colored pencils. Okay. A lot of times, there's this kind of this either or type of thing with media being used in stamping and card making. It's like, okay, do you do that with, I mean, you can certainly go, single usage or single media usage types of applications on pieces, but there's some things that just work better for certain types of marks on your cards, and you can utilize whatever you have. So it doesn't, if you're using watercolor, okay, this is going to be a watercolor scene. Well, if you have other things that you want to do on here that, an alcohol pen would be perfect for, colored pencils or whatever, why not just, utilize those other types of media for the mark within this given area. So if you're here, like this is a really light pink right here, but it's a little bit of a warm pink, but I don't know if you could see it in here. Can you see that little tone in here that I'm adding this with? I'm doing it real subtle, so I don't know if you can see it here, but this is, going to work better for this use probably than, I don't know, maybe the watercolor would have anyway. So I don't know. Put your media to to work for whatever type of thing you're going after with it. Okay. All right, so that is that. I think that pink looked pretty good. Here's a real bright pink right here. We can get a little bit of a stronger glow before we come in with our white pigment ink over the top of it for that atmospheric type of glow. So see, for something like these pencils like this, I don't know, maybe this is better for kind of, I don't know, whatever, specific areas of kind of fill in tone, to make areas glow a little bit better. But they're not going to give me that kind of that real washy type of tone like that, water would do. So why not use them together for that? Pastels, might be kind of interesting if you're working with a paper, cardstock that might be able to have enough texture for that in conjunction with watercolors. I think that would be kind of a cool combination. The extreme softness of the pastels in conjunction with kind of your more washy types of looks with other media. I've always thought that might be a cool combination. All right, so let's see this area down here. Maybe I still want some kind of focal point in this, but I think my little boater would be a little bit too big right up in here, especially in relation to this bridge right here. If I had a little boat, it would be more like right here. But this isn't like, I don't this is kind of like a real shallow creek. We can put little birds flying up here, and that would be kind of the appropriate distance for this. You know, if I had really small ones, it'd be really cool right back in here. Or we could put, I don't know, we could put like a little purple rising sun in the distance. I don't know. I'll figure it out. All right, let's add in this white pigment ink right here. Hello, Bugs. Hello, Kay. Trifold cards or note cards? That's a great idea. Yeah, you know, one of the things about these imagery too, I think I only did it on one thing so far, but I really liked a triptych done with this imagery too. I don't know, someone posted that in the Facebook group. I thought, oh, that looks really fantastic, because it looks like one of those 3-panel screens that you see with this type of imagery. So that being said, like a trifold card, that would be really cool, because it's kind of the same, you know, kind of idea there. I do like sequential pieces too. All right, so this transition's pretty good as is, but I think adding this extra kind of white pigment ink in here makes it even more kind of luminous and subtle and glowing. My white pigment ink is quite dry. Okay, that's why I'm able to go directly from this right onto this, okay? All right, let's have some of this mist coming over the top of this area up here. It's coming from below, but what I'll do is I'll put this mountain kind of closer to us by putting this one pushed back in the distance with the use of value and I guess texture here. By making it lighter like that. See how it kind of pushes it back kind of visually by making it lighter like that. And it also, it's like mist is coming through that little canyon area. All right, now we've left these areas down here lighter, okay, so that there'd be some kind of this purple haze or mist coming from the water, like so. Let's do that mountain right there too, I think. Or a bit of it, like that. Okay, and let's bring it into this area down here. I'm still thinking about foreground down here that I might add, I'm not sure. But I can add it right over the top of this white pigment ink. It should apply no problem. We'll kind of put a little passage of this kind of mist going right up to the, through this little creek and right up to the bridge here. I'll go like that. Okay, let's bring some of it down here in this water. We have this big area to fill in here, but we'll make it a kind of more subtle and softer with a little bit of that mist like that. If you apply too much, you just kind of wipe it off. All right, I think that is about right. See that area up there? As this is drying, it became more see-through. Okay, it's translucent, but it starts moving towards transparent when it dries. I mean, it's not transparent, but it's kind of moving in that direction as opposed to, you know, kind of more towards opacity. So, you know, you just kind of tweak it like that a little bit more and build up more of that white pigment ink over the top of it, and it should take care of that. Let's see, I'm going to bring some of this into these areas right here too. They're a little bit sharp looking, so I'll soften that up a touch, about like that. And this area down here, I need to build that out with a little bit more texture, so I'm going to use this tiny rock stamp. I just put some at the base around in here. I should really add some white pigment ink over the top of it, which I'll do when it dries. But all right, so down here, let's just go with something real subtle. I'm seeing if I had my smaller reed stamp. I just have that larger one right here. I have the cattails. I don't think I want to use cattails down here. Let's just go with this one. Let's do this in, let's do it in Stays On. Stays On looks a little bit shinier to me when it dries. So when it's something that's in the foreground, it tends to stand out visually a little bit more to me. Again, I don't want to go too far into the scene either, because I'm kind of really stamping this right into my creek here, but it just needs a little bit more. I needed a little bit more of like a foundation here, and it pushes depth a little bit more. You know, having those reeds real close to us. All right, so tweaks here. If the name of this is going to be Purple Haze, let's add a little bit more haze right up in here, right around the mountain area. Okay, that looks a little bit better. Or, I don't know, it looks a little bit more extreme. There we go, something like that too. See how it oscillates? It's a little bit kind of white here and soft looking, and then you have something crisp, and then you put that there again to contrast against that row of trees. So when you're doing this type of thing, just kind of, you know, kind of apply it here and there. See, it's like applied here, and then these trees are largely left alone, and then I have it on that tree right there. It's so that you have these areas contrasting against one another, so that looks extra soft and light when you have something crisp and dark next to it, like that, okay? Or see this right here, it's just kind of soft on that end and it's crisp on that. I mean, you could do, I guess, something that's, you know, completely blanketed out, and maybe this area right here would, you know, you'd have it like sharp and then fogged out right here at that distance, and then it would be crisp back there. I guess you can do that, where, you know, these areas right here would be contrasting against one another as opposed to right next to each other, you know what I mean? I don't know. I haven't really done that before. Maybe I'll have to try that sometime. This area right here, I have to keep reapplying it. I've only gone with like one really thin layer, so I can see it, you know, like drying out as we, you know, as I blab here. Okay, so that's a little bit lighter, but I think it's going to dry and become a little bit darker. And then when I spray seal this, and I probably will spray seal it, you'll lose some of the opacity and you're going to move it more towards kind of transparency in that scale. So just keep that in mind as well. If you ever spray seal these, what you want to do is you want to just put a thin layer over the top of it and then let it dry for a few seconds and then come back over it again with a thin layer and then let it dry a little bit more. And then you can hit it with a little bit of a stronger coat when everything is kind of sealed in. If you hit it with too thick of a spray sealant right directly on top of these real thin applications of like a pigment ink, they almost act like a dry pastel or chalk or something like that. Where spray sealing too thickly right off the bat, it almost eradicates it. You know, it makes it all of those things a lot more transparent. So, you know, just keep that in mind. Just do it in layers, you know, which is a good idea to do anyway with spray sealing. Okay, unless you're in a hurry. You know, sometimes I do things in a hurry, but if I have a lot of white pigment ink on and very subtle layers of pigment ink, sometimes I don't even spray that pigment ink. I'll just kind of spray the perimeter like this, because the lighter areas of pigment ink are usually on my interior of my card, because that's where the light is usually. Okay, so hitting these trees with a little bit more pink. After I did all that with the white, it made some of the pink applications within those areas kind of real subtle, so I'm just adding that vibrancy, or a little bit more vibrancy, back into those trees, like they're kind of blossoming springtime trees, maybe. All right, so anyways, I'll get this formatted, but yeah, this is what it'll kind of look like. I don't know what kind of border I'll put on this one. Something. It needs a little bit of a border around there, and I'll probably put it in a black or a dark piece of glossy around it, like that. I don't know. It needs a little bit more of something. I'll figure it out. Maybe more purple tinges in there somewhere. I liked what that pink did in here. Let me see. With this, I don't know. We need some brighter areas, maybe. I think I don't want to affect this hazy area too much, but maybe kind of hitting some of these areas and making some areas a little bit more intense will be good. We need some kind of brightness within this piece, like in the shadow areas. I think we can get some brighter tones going, maybe. But I don't know. I do want to retain some of those more subtle types of hazy kind of touches within the space, because I wanted that to be the whole theme of the piece. And I don't know. I need some kind of subject matter. So it's one of those things. I think I'll let this kind of sit for... that really looks different on there too, huh? it creates so much more contrast. When you have it against white, this is the darker thing. But now when you put it like that, it's like way, lighter in there, through that contrast. So, oh, maybe, I'll have to see if I have some purple foil or something like that, like a pink or purple one that I can put around that. I don't know if I want to waste that just in terms of a tiny little border, though. I don't know. I'll figure it out. So anyways, that's, kind of a different take on this watercolory, washy look that I've been doing for the most part in grayscale. But I think you can do this in any kind of color scheme that you want to. And it doesn't have to be just monotone too either. But I do think that these ones really read well with kind of your monochromatic applications in here. And it looks more like those kind of in the spirit of those water ink paintings out there. Traditional ink paintings, So it certainly makes it easy too when you're not using like so many different color schemes in one piece. All right, let's see. No questions here. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining in on this late night piece, whatever time it is for you. And I don't know, I'll finish this piece off. Like I said, there's a couple things I want to figure out in here. I think I need to make this top part a little bit darker up here, just with a little bit of a vignette maybe. And I still want some kind of little focal point in here. Or maybe it's just a little bird down here in the water again. I keep using that little crane, like this one. There's not a whole lot of room for it, but I think that might be kind of interesting like that. I used it on a couple other pieces. Just some kind of little thing down here I think would be kind of interesting. We need some sort of starting point for this whole piece. I don't think I want this fisherman, but he would definitely fit in there like that. Like something like that. I'll give him like this, more like a Asian hat though. All right, folks, have a great rest of evening, and thanks again for joining in.